Module 8, Transportation for Military Veterans. In the past 5 years, there has been a groundswell of support for veterans, resulting in local and federal initiatives that are focusing unprecedented levels of funding to assist them. Their needs are complex, and no less so when transportation is considered. Their mobility needs are impacted by common characteristics across all veterans, such as physical and emotional disabilities and low-income levels among many, as well as issues specific to their date and type of service. For example, we currently have veterans from their early 20s to those in their late 80s and 90s. The optimal services for veterans at all points on this spectrum may differ. In past decades, veterans' transportation-related issues were seen as being in the realm of the Department of Veterans Affairs, Veterans Services Organizations, and nonprofit veterans groups. But now veterans' issues are recognized as the country's issues, as a shared societal responsibility. With the recent rapid increase of veterans returning from active service, the need for transportation is expanding. As of September 2010, there were approximately 22.7 million military veterans living in the United States, over 9 million of whom were aged 65 or older. Approximately 6% of veterans are living in poverty, and approximately 6.1 million have a disability. Here are some of the considerations when trying to assist veterans in accessing transportation services. Many veterans have physical disabilities that impact the choice of the most appropriate type of transportation service. Veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder or other disorders related to their military service, for example, anxiety attacks, may be more sensitive to loud noises, crowds, and jostling, which may make busy transportation hubs or crowded public vehicles a less desirable option for them. Also, medical services offered by the Department of Veterans Affairs are increasingly becoming consolidated into large regional centers. Although this may make the delivery of services more cost-efficient, it also makes it more difficult for many veterans who have limited transportation options to reach those services. Some may have to travel over 100 miles one way to reach these facilities. What are current transportation options for veterans? Transportation benefits provided by the Department of Veterans Affairs are connected to medical treatment and vocational rehabilitation. The level of assistance will vary based on whether the disability is service-related and based on the severity of the disability. Veterans may be required to pay a deductible for these transportation services. Here is a model of nonprofit and government collaboration. The Disabled American Veterans, or DAV, a nonprofit organization founded 80 years ago to build better lives for Americans' disabled veterans and their families, cooperates with the VA to provide transportation to veterans. In Virginia, for example, local chapters of the DAV and the state DAV organization purchase vans to be used to take veterans to medical appointments. The van is insured and maintained by the VA Medical Center and driven by DAV-recruited volunteer drivers. Rides to and from the medical center are organized through volunteer hospital transportation coordinators who are located at the medical center. One thing to note is that these vans are not wheelchair accessible, so that veterans who use wheelchairs may find their transportation options more limited than those for other veterans. More information on finding DAV hospital coordinators is given in the resources section. DAV has a volunteer transportation service in every state, but the transportation is limited by volunteers' availability to drive the vehicles it provides and their sole use of non-lift equipped vans. These groups provide much-needed transportation, and they provide it well, but more is needed. In 2010, the Department of Veterans Affairs began committing its internal resources to a pilot program of a veterans transportation system, initially at 4 sites: Temple, Texas, Ann Arbor, Michigan, Muskogee, Oklahoma, and Salt Lake City, Utah. The service is now in almost 50 cities. The goals of this program are to 1. Increase transportation resources and options for veterans. 2. Use technology to improve efficiency, such as ride-sharing software and GPS units. 3. To provide one-call access to public, commercial, and VTS transportation. And 4th, to access the services of a network of providers, including VSOs, or Veterans Services Organizations, community and commercial providers, nonprofits, and federal, state, and local governments. Because veterans transportation is a mix of VA-funded and local services, it can be challenging for veterans to determine what services are best to take them to medical, employment, and other destinations. In 2011, the U.S. Department of Transportation began a new grant program to specifically respond to veterans' needs for simplified access to transportation services. These Veterans Transportation and Community Living Initiative grants, or VTCLI grants, were given to communities to facilitate a simplified one-call service in which the providers could sort out who's doing or paying for which part of which trip, and the only upfront burden on the veteran is to call one and only one phone number to request the trip. A second round of grants was awarded in July 2012. Mobility managers can identify which communities receive these grants through the link in the resources, and if their community was one, can become part of these exciting opportunities. Transportation is a covered service for veterans through other federal funding programs as well. The VA provides capital grants to public or nonprofit private entities so they can assist homeless veterans by helping to ensure the availability of supportive housing and service centers to furnish outreach, rehabilitative services, vocational counseling and training, and transitional housing. One of the items the VA will fund for up to 65% of the cost is to procure vans to provide transportation or outreach. Through its Veterans Workforce Investment Program, the U.S. Department of Labor will provide transportation assistance to veterans for whom transportation is a barrier to finding a job. More information on this is available in the resources at the end of this module. Veterans can avail of public transit systems for medical, employment, and other trips, much as all other Americans can. Those with a disability, for trips not covered by a VA-sponsored service, may be eligible for the demand response transportation available to eligible riders with a disability. See Module 4, Transportation for People with Disabilities, to learn more about what is possible. Some public transit systems have chosen to provide free or discounted transportation to veterans beyond what they provide to riders based on their age or disability status. For example, Houston Metro offers deep fare discounts to veterans who are more than 50% disabled, as certified by the VA. For example, instead of paying a $2 fare each way, a veteran might pay only 75 cents. Across Minnesota, as of 2009, veterans can ride fixed-route transit in any community and public transportation system for free. In 2008, when the VA moved a lightly used medical clinic from Sanford, Florida, to a new facility about 13 miles to the north, it turned to the local transit system, LYNX, to overcome the new transportation challenge this presented to area veterans. LYNX had already cultivated relationships with veterans service officers in its region and was providing veterans with unlimited use transit passes. To solve this latest challenge, one of LYNX's Vanpool vehicles was assigned to the new clinic site to operate between the Central Florida Regional Hospital in Orlando and the new clinic. LYNX also would deliver veterans to the hospital via two of its fixed-route bus lines and on its demand response service. In East Texas, veterans and their family companions board an over-the-road coach operated by Coach America under contract to Brazos Transit to access the therapeutic and routine care provided by the VA in Houston. This service, launched in 1995, added 2 new buses recently to help Brazos Transit connect veterans with both the local VA facility in Lufkin and to the transportation available there to the larger Houston VA Medical Center. The VA and Brazos Transit operates several vehicles that they use to collect veterans from the surrounding rural areas and bring them to Lufkin for the longer ride to Houston. Veterans organizations are committed to taking care of their own returning soldiers, including helping with transportation. In addition to the Disabled American Veterans Service described earlier, these organizations also may provide help. The American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, Blinded Veterans Association, and Paralyzed Veterans of America. Here's an example of what one community has done. Veterans in Kendall County, Illinois used to have a very long wait going to medical services at the nearest VA hospital, leaving sometimes at 4 a.m. in the morning. In 2007, 70% of Kendall County residents approved an additional 0.2% levy on residential and commercial property to support veterans services. Ed Dixon, head of the county's Veterans Assistance Commission, used the new funds to purchase a wheelchair-accessible van and a sedan to provide rides to veterans. In the first few months of 2007, his organization transported over 150 veterans to medical appointments each week. Destinations included a VA hospital 90 miles away, a dialysis clinic 10 to 15 miles away, and a local VA clinic located 25 miles away. The veterans paid nothing for the service. An important contact for mobility managers with regard to veterans' needs for transportation are the recovery care coordinators. When a military service member has a serious injury or illness that makes a return to duty unlikely, he or she is assigned a recovery team. The recovery team may include the service member's commanding officer, a medical case care manager, a non-medical care manager, and a federal recovery coordinator or a recovery care coordinator. While the team develops a recovery plan, evaluates its effectiveness, and adjusts it as transitions occur, it is the recovery care coordinator who makes sure the plan is complete, that it meets the service members' and the family's goals, and works with the commander to oversee and coordinate the services and resources identified in the plan. Because transportation is needed to connect the service member with services recommended in the plan, mobility managers can provide valuable information and linkages to these care coordinators. Several resources have been included with this module that give you information about transportation options for veterans. Please view the many resources and links to expand your learning beyond this module. Thank you for your participation.